a lot of people, they don't feel, because they've been so focused on their career, because they've been so focused and they thought they were going to stay with that company for so long, they thought they were going to stay in that job for so long, they're not ready to take the leap.
Yeah. And then those same people, when they get laid off or fired, they are shocked, and it just rocks their world, because they were just not they thought, I don't know if people just think that when they get a job it's going to last forever, but that's just not the way the job market is nowadays. It's so fast, and it just changes so rapidly. And especially, I mean, we all learned that too, right? And when COVID started, which is, you can lose your job at a moment's notice.
Yep.
And anybody and everybody is at risk of losing their job almost all the time. And it does not help people to pretend that that's not the case. It does not help people to pretend that that's not the case. Not that you have to be an alarmist about it, but a lot of people, I think, were really, really surprised when they lost their jobs. You know, even if they worked in industries that no longer had any business. Yeah. And that's huge. You need to be prepared for that kind of thing, because it's about your life, you know? You got to think about that, because your employer won't.
With that cohort of people, what we see happen a lot is they start talking like, oh man, maybe I should go back to school. Maybe,
almost immediately.
Maybe I should go back to school. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's like the first thing that you do is it's safety. That's why it's perceived safety.
It's all they know how to do.
Yeah, it's perceived safety, and it's familiar, and it's like, oh well, what do I do if I want job training? If I want to go into a different field, if I can't get a job in this field, this field no longer exists, or I just got laid off of this job sucked anyway, or I just quit. They're like, oh yeah, I'll go back to school to get trained into a different field. When, you know, our whole argument is that like, that's not the case. Like job training and college are two vastly different things. And, you know, if you're prepared before, you won't have that knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Or if you do have that knee-jerk reaction, you can calm down and be like, okay, whoa, I had a plan.
Yeah.
I have a plan.
See what else I can do first.
Right. There are other things to do.
We saw that a lot here in Hawaii when that happened, was people who, what I heard, because of the industry I was working in at the time, I heard people who had like marketing degrees, or they had hospitality degrees, or they had business degrees. And then they're all like, oh, I'm going to go get my MBA. Why would you do that? You don't do that. You clearly your job doesn't exist. And going to buy a more expensive degree is not going to make that job exist anymore. It just means you're going to spend money to try to apply for the same type of job that now no longer exists. And it was because they were so crystallized into this way of thinking that that's the only way that they can change lanes. They can't just learn a new skill. They can't just teach themselves something else and then apply for something in the same field with just a slightly different added skill. You know, like somebody with a marketing degree didn't just go learn and get a social media management certification or something like that, or learn Google Ads. Instead, they're like, oh, I'm going to go get an MBA. Maybe this is better because one, this is free and that's a really good idea. So try this first and see if you can apply within that field and get a job. But a lot of people, I think a lot of people believe, and I think maybe colleges imply this, but that they're going to only have like one or two jobs and they're going to stay in the same field because they have a degree, but that's just not the case for a lot of people.